when it comes to like when you have these lots of different flavors, in your business, if you're selling safety glasses, you're selling this, you're selling that, it really boils down to making sure you understand what that sales process looks like and that the system really is intuitive and follows a very simple flow. That to me is at its core what a good CRM or good grouping or packaging of software will do.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. Sales teams are typically known to be completely disconnected from the organization. But if you have a smart sales team, they understand the importance of technology and what it can do to the sales process. The sales technologies have also come a long way. There are so many tools out there that can help with each step of the process. But what are the systems that need to be part of the enterprise architecture to help with each sales role inside the organization? In today's episode, we invited a panel of cross-functional experts for a live interview on LinkedIn who brings significant expertise to discuss information architecture for the sales department. We covered many grounds, including the systems for each sales role and their process boundaries. Finally, we discussed new technologies and industry-specific architecture, including the challenges associated with B2B and B2C and how the processes might differ due to nuances of the marketplaces, customer portals, configurators, and dealer onboarding processes. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. For today, we have a very, very, very exciting topic because we are going to be living inside the sales department. We are going to be talking about the user journeys of all of the sales roles that we have inside the department. We are going to be talking about their needs for the systems and their interaction and the systems that are going to be connected with the enterprise architecture. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. And I'm actually going to start with you, Dave Chrysler, for the intro, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Hey, everybody. My name is Dave Chrysler, and I own an operations consulting business called the Chrysler Club, where we work with business owners in manufacturing, construction, and cannabis to help them create the systems needed to reclaim their life and grow their business. And I come to you with more than 20 years in manufacturing operations, and happy to be here. Thanks, Sam.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Dave. Chris, can I go to you next for your intro?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Chris Gherardini, President and owner of Turnkey Technologies. We've been implementing Dynamics ERP and CRM solutions for a little over 30 years, so glad to be here.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Chris, for your intro. Chuck, can I go to you next for your intro?
Yes, sir. My name's Chuck Hockstead. I'm Director of Sales and Marketing for ProCensus, and I create warehouse superheroes. And I have done just about everything in manufacturing that you can and probably use about 7 CRM systems. God help us all.
Love it. This is going to be so exciting. Thank you so much for being here, Chuck. All right, Tim, can I move to you next for your intro?
Absolutely. I'm Tim Harrison. I'm the Director of AGV Sales for MCJ Supply Chain Solutions, which is the U.S. arm for Young Heinrich electric fork trucks. And I've been in the sales world for over 20 years, starting out as a sales guy and moving up through various channels. And I have used CRMs of various sizes, various types since then, as well as built out various go-to-market strategies and sales teams and sales operations groups. So yeah, looking forward to this.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Tim. Jeff, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Sam. Glad to be here today. Jeff Lem, president and founder of Portable Intelligence. We develop software for supply chains, specifically managing warehouses. I'm a professed sales junkie. I'm always learning to better my craft. I feel that it's something you need to continually improve upon, and to that end, I've lost track as to how many sales books I've read, and we're currently doing a course now, and happy to share some of our experiences from that course. It's a year-long sales training program, and our sales force is just eating it up. It's been really good. So really glad to be here, and great topic once again.
Could not agree more on sharpening the craft. Thank you so much for being here, Jeff. So, all right, so we are going to dig right into the topic, and we are going to start with stories. And I don't know if you guys are going to have any specific stories that you might be able to share from your sales departments, but my goal is going to be to talk about some of the roles that you have seen, which systems they have used, and if those systems were really part of the architecture. Dave, can I start with you first, if you don't mind?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, in my experience, kind of taking a look at the overall architecture from a sales perspective, a couple things come to mind: managing inbound and outbound activity. So that's kind of the first thing that I'm thinking about from this standpoint. And in my experience, from a kind of direct system standpoint, we're talking about things like CRM, marketing automation, e-commerce, ERP. I would say those are probably the main systems that I've seen in my experience. And then as you dive down a little bit deeper into some of the other processes from, like, let's say, a planning standpoint, how you interact and utilize those systems, how those systems are ultimately connected to each other, starts to tell you the story of what your planning process is going to look like, and then ultimately flowing into, your sales process, both on the inbound and outbound side. So that's been my experience so far. Obviously, with a lot of the different businesses out there, you have to first evaluate where you are at with your systems architecture. What are we starting from? What are we trying to do? Can we do that with existing technology? Do we have to look at it from, just a straight process standpoint? Is there additional technology, whether that's, complete upgrade, bolt on, what have you? There's so many different kind of avenues to take that conversation once you really understand where are we at today, where do we want to be, what activities are currently happening with the systems that we already have in place.
Okay, amazing insights there. Thank you so much, Dave, for that. So I'm going to have one clarifying question for you. So the systems that you mentioned marketing automation, CRM, and I don't know if you mentioned ERP or not, but do you want to touch a little bit on the process boundaries? In my mind, I think that is really critical to define what is going to be the role of each system, because we all have tendency to overuse our systems, and that's where most problems are going to be. So do you want to touch on the process boundaries?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I agree with you. I mean, it's interesting as I was kind of going through the, the questions for today and jotting some notes down. That was one thing that was in my mind, is that, as we start to talk about these systems, and the more advanced that the systems get, there is so much of an overlap in terms of ability to utilize, let's say, CRM versus, marketing automation. Use one system for both functions. You can even roll that into website development, because a lot of the CRMs now have integrated landing pages, have integrated scheduling ability. So from my standpoint, in terms of the best way to kind of define the bounds, is one, understand what technology is in place today. And I mean, I could give you an example, even from a scheduling perspective. Somebody that has a dedicated scheduling app for all of their sales team and or outside sales reps. So they have one dedicated tool or system to support that functionality, but the CRM that they use also has that functionality built into it. So we need to take a look at, from a process standpoint, finding out, okay, how are we utilizing, how is the team utilizing that scheduling tool today? And does the CRM, if we want to, let's say, combine those two functions, do we have the ability within the CRM, within the bounds of that, without going out of the scope of primary functionality? Do we have the ability to integrate those things into one tool? one tool, less maintenance, less overhead, less retraining, less ongoing training, less ongoing maintenance. The list kind of goes on and on when we start talking about that. So that's kind of just one really small example, but there's a bunch of them the deeper you dive into this.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Dave, for that. So, Chris, I'm actually going to come to you for your story, roles, systems, interactions, whatever you have seen in your experience.
Sure. Appreciate it. So, I think as Dave was alluding, business process and the organizations are all going to differ based on the type of tool they need to run their different activities. You mentioned inside sales in one comment. Back office ERP, those may be just order takers. They don't maybe need a CRM system. But back to architecture, again, you're going to have your ERP, right? Front office, though, customer relationship management. And again, if you think about business processes, the simplest one is it lead to opportunity, and then even opportunity management, where you're trying to take someone who's not even interested, get engaged, get a proposal, win the business. And again, then you start mapping those touch points back to the ERP where, hey, new customer, send it over, order, send it over. So again, ERP, CRM architecture, typically small businesses may find some CRM functions in the ERP, but it's not going to let them manage a sales team, a sales force, develop forecasts, do activity-based tracking to start measure sales reps' performance to find out. Again, there's that little area where you're trying to manage a sales rep's performance to make sure why aren't they having effective results against targets. And as we back the other way, Dave mentioned, marketing automation. Yeah, demand gen. How do we do demand gen? And a lot of the CRMs will let you, hey, wait, got a new lead. I'm going to type it in. Yeah, but how did it get there? And so if you think about marketing automation, just a couple of years ago, we bolted one on even in our world. So again, Dynamics ERP, Dynamics CRM, marketing automation is an email marketing engine that we bolted on. Well, Microsoft's just built one, so now we're deprecating that for a Microsoft one, but you're not always going to find connected systems where, how do I do demand gen? How do I do email marketing or even event management? That's a whole different process. And Dave mentioned, the website interaction. Yes, a lot of these tools will do landing pages and facilitate that, but that's still, now I've got somebody interested. Let's put it into the sales process, run it through the CRM. Just a couple other architecture comments on that front end CRM it's how do we sell, right? What am I selling? Am I just taking a sales order? Very simple process. Configurators. So that's another topic that could be plugged into a CRM side where I don't want my sales reps having to bother my engineers. So we try to embed more engineering into a configure, price, quote, CPQ configurator to get a little bit more of that front end process independent of the back end engineers. And so you may see, again, marketing automation bolted on, a configurator bolted on, and again, certainly two-way integration, right? Because salespeople need to know what's happening in the back office. I want to key these in. So again, those are the big pieces that we're seeing in play today.
Very interesting. So I'm going to have just one follow-up question, especially around CPQ, because CPQ is going to be slightly more involved overall from the data maintenance perspective, because that is going to require a lot more product data, engineering data. Other systems are all obviously going to have the handshake, but in that case, that's probably going to be slightly easier handshake in my mind. So when we talk about the process boundaries, and I am really looking for the process boundaries, because one thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to do, let's say, the CPQ inside ERP or marketing automation inside ERP or something like that, because they are not really designed for that.
That's cool.
So the right use of the system is really important. So in your experience, when you design, let's say the place for CPQ and the data that it needs to be able to perform and the interactions it needs to have. So what would be the boundary for CPQ with the other systems?
It gets interesting because we actually think there can't be boundaries because CPQ can have a sales rep experience. There is a back office experience. Okay. So the CPQs I work with, and then there's even a customer facing portal. So imagine the customer experience. He can show up, configure, just like he does on some of the computer websites. Sales reps could use a configure and back office could still pull it up. So that experience to a CPQ really revolves around the entire platform, frankly. I've got situations where maybe they're just using the CRM, but it really is a touch point throughout the system because the CPQ typically is turning into either a configured manufacturing order. And you're right, there is a high degree of complexity. And again, sales reps, they're trying to keep them in a little box, but the back office CPQ may be used by a different audience. So those boundaries are still by role, and what the back office person does with a CPQ is going to be different than a sales rep. He may be picking up, do final review, part of that workflow approval process before a configured manufacturing order ends up in engineering. So there are gates to your point about who's approving, who owns it once it leaves this point in time. And you're right. Once the rep leaves it, it's one. I think the engineering teams are going to typically deal with it. Again, varieties depending on how you take orders. So build to order, configure to order, engineer to order, anyway, stuff.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. So, Chuck, I'm actually going to come to you. So, obviously, when I talk to you, when I look at you, you are my gadget guy. You have all the shiny toys in the world that I want. And these guys are still talking about ERP, CRM, and marketing. So, when we look at the landscape of sales technology, I mean, sales technology is where the innovation is happening. There are at least 50,000 tools. And obviously, we have not covered them. So now I'm going to hope that you are going to be covering a lot of different tools, and if they are going to have any sort of interaction with these existing tools in the architecture. So do you have any specific story that you might be able to share?
Well, I want to start with a story that I do have. So I was as a sales manager for a company in Europe. I was on a team implementing Salesforce.com across, and this was a global multinational, and one very large division of this multinational had multiple divisions, and we decided, as if I had anything to do with the decision, to put in Salesforce.com. And they were going to roll out Salesforce.com across every single one of the divisions. As you can imagine, that was not the sales managers, the vice presidents of sales didn't all get together to come up with this decision, because each one of them has a different product, has a different selling process. So when we talk about processes, okay, there's the internal process, but there's also the sales process. And what are these systems intended to do? They're customer relationship managers. Okay. They only have one purpose. And that is, it's a tool to help you fill the pipeline and accelerate everything through. Exactly. That's it. That's a different set of processes. But as you can imagine, with all of these divisions, the impetus for the project came from where? Finance side. And it was thrust upon everyone. And interestingly enough, all of these different divisions had their own ERP system. So as you can imagine, it's a bit of a nightmare, or it's terribly unproductive, because one of the great benefits of CRM is sharing data. So the sharing data from a unified Salesforce.com allowed them, the finance guys wanted to see a unified forecast, because they were a public company. That's their MO. But everything became terribly, terribly ineffective. And of course, all the shiny tools in the world are completely worthless if they're not actually reusing data. Yeah. Okay. So the systems that I've used, okay, the only ones that have been successful, okay, have actually been the ones that were sales process driven, believe it or not. And so there are, you have, we joked about it in the prep. I'm a Mac guy. You have Mac versions, you have Windows versions, you have hosted versions. You have all of these different things. You have standalone clients. It really comes down to, what is your sales process and how do you do it? In terms of the interaction, we're actually using NetSuite. In terms of Chris's comment, and building on David's with the back office. Yeah. Okay. The real crucial part, the integration of the ERP, and this is a shiny tool, is get everyone a complete picture of what's going on at a customer. Okay. That's absolutely crucial. The touch points are, if your inside salesperson touches that customer and outside salesperson is going to touch the customer, okay, then they need to know about that interaction. If there was a service ticket, if there was something to that effect, if that's the type of business that you have, that information is really crucial, lest inside sales or outside sales or service walks into a hornet's nest. And so those shiny tools are, a series of processes that come down to, what is the architecture of the system? What is my sales process? Does it actually help things to enter and accelerate and move things through the pipeline and close revenue? Okay. And how does it help the rest of the organization? Period. There's nothing else. They have no other purpose in the world.
Yeah. So you actually bring a very interesting comment. Okay. And this is what I see in the community when I talk to a lot of people. Okay. Obviously, Salesforce is amazing. There is no question. Okay. But I have also seen Salesforce disasters. And that is with every single vendor, every single tool, every tool out there, because they are all designed for a very specific purpose, most likely for specific industries as well. Again, when you over-implement them, when you over-engineer them, that's where the problems are. So in this particular case, when you mentioned that they were trying to push Salesforce, but that didn't go very well. So in your experience, have you seen any specific scenarios where, let's say, a specific CRM is not going to be a good fit? What are the drivers when you look at? So one thing you mentioned is the sales process. Have you seen anything else that should be the driver, or should they be all going to, hey, I want to go for number one? That's it. Argument's done.
It should never be the number one CRM
Right.
as an objective, because it is subjective as to what's the number one CRM. I have heard the context of someone said, I need to use the number one CRM, so I'm using HubSpot. Well, let me tell you, HubSpot is a fantastic, good marketing automation tool. It is a really lousy sales CRM tool.
Yep.
It's very, very poor. Its data entry capabilities just aren't really suitable. So there are going to be failures along those lines, and the things that really do work is understanding the basics of what you really need to do with it. And CRM comes down to one thing: data linking, record linking. That's it. Can I link contacts? Can I link companies? Can I link opportunities? Can I link tasks? Can I link appointments? Can I do? And then everything else is nice to haves. Everything. Can I link, does it have a project feature? Does something switch from opportunity to project? Technically, there are different kinds of projects. Does it have that? And is there continuity in that record linking? That's it. If you have that, okay, then you can build it around any process that you have within your company, but you have to understand the way it works. And so it's not about using number one, because oftentimes it's so subjective that number one doesn't work for you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Chuck, for that. So, Tim, I'm actually going to come to you. So, obviously, you are building a lot of different sales organizations yourself. You are probably implementing a lot of different technologies. So, in your experience, what are different tools that you are trying to explore? What are you trying to implement at this point of time? And what have you seen from the architecture perspective and the sales role perspective in your experience?
Yeah. So, we've I've been involved with a lot of different types of CRMs, and everything from an Excel spreadsheet, because you can build an Excel workbook that's a CRM, to homegrown systems, to Salesforce, Zoho, HubSpot, and others, and they all have their own unique idiosyncrasies. There have been plenty of times where I'm building out Salesforce and we find out that we can't do something. And the same thing with Zoho and HubSpot. They all have various limitations. So what I've learned is that even if you're using an Excel tool, just a spreadsheet that has a list of all your projects and everything, your leads and so on, you really need to look at what is the process? What is the natural sales process that you have? Yep. And then what are the behaviors you're looking to drive in your sales team? And 20 years ago, CRMs were basically like a micromanagement tool. The sales manager would call the sales guy and say, hey, you have this in your pipeline. What are you closing this month? And now there's still a little bit of that going on, but I believe it's more of an empowerment tool for the sales team. So the sales team can see, hey, here are the people that I haven't spoken with in the past 6 months, or these are projects that should be moved to a certain stage, or maybe here are companies, we're seeing trends with this company. So, hey, you should reach out to these folks. So I think there's more of that proactive, thinking with these tools. And, my personal favorite is Salesforce. I've used it several times now from scratch. You get on there, you can be live with a system like Salesforce or HubSpot or Zoho in an evening. And you start off with it, and then you start realizing there are little things that I need to modify. One of the things that I've really found interesting is that a lot of people will take these software packages and then start to say, we are special. We need this extra, we need that extra, we need this customization. And I like to push back and say, why are we really so special? Why do we think we're so special when so many other companies can actually use the package right out of the box? So before we go down this rabbit hole of creating these wild customizations that do this, this, and this, why don't we try it and do a little test? I've seen the major rollout, of a international global company rolling out Salesforce. And what happened there is that the Ivory Tower figured out this is what we need to do for everyone. And then they rolled that out. And then the same thing that used to happen 20 years ago, sales guys would go in there and they'd figure out how to play the system. They're just playing a game with the CRM. You're getting false, information, inaccurate reporting, and you're not getting a visual into what's really going on in the business. A great CRM implementation, these salespeople, it's almost intuitive that they update this information, that the system provides them with accurate data, provides finance with accurate data, provides operations and business planning with accurate information. And that's the real value of this modern day CRM is sales guy enters it once and that data goes all the way throughout the process to the right teams that need that information. And then As far as you mentioned boundaries, I like to look at, I like to have accountability in the process, in the sales process. And one of the things that I like to do is say, okay, sales team, we've got the inbound side, we've got the outbound side, and then this is how we interface to finance, and here's how we interface to operations or the ERP system. And we really need to have clean handoffs. It really bothers me when finance has to call sales and say, hey, I've got questions about this order, that order. We should have it defined so that a report goes out, a notification goes out, and then finance has the report at the beginning of every month. They've got the accurate data from last month. When an order comes through, finance and operations has the information that says this is what needs to be ordered and when. And that, I think, a lot of companies could stand to do something about, because right now I think there are a lot of companies that intermingle. Finance is involved too much in sales, and operations is too involved in sales. Let sales go sell. And then the last point is that I'm a real believer that I want my sales team out there selling. I do not pay a sales guy to be a data entry clerk. That to me is a complete waste of money. These are folks that are making six figures, multi six figures. You even have $1 million salespeople out there. I do not want them messing and inputting data into Salesforce or into any CRM. So I'm a big believer of having basically one point of contact where a salesperson can call their inside sales team and say, this is what I have going on with my project. And then inside sales is inputting that data, because that's what they're good at. They're good at popping that data in there, making sure that it's accurate, making sure we're checking all the boxes. Yeah, that's something else I think that some companies could stand to improve. Stop having your salespeople being data entry clerks. That's not what they're good at. That's not what excites them.
That's a very, very interesting comment. And we are actually going to ask everybody if they feel comfortable with that, because the whole idea of CRM was supposed to be that, every user should be interacting with them. And when you have another person as the handshake, you are actually bypassing the system. You are bypassing the process, and there is going to be a translation involved. You are not going to get the accurate data. So I understand the financial perspective there, the one that you are trying to mention, but I don't know how many sales leaders are really going to be comfortable with the sales leader simply calling the inside sales guy.
Yeah.
And they should be.
So it's not just the inside sales. Like, this is not a back door. This is the process. Like, the process is, sales guy, the inside sales says, hey, here are your leads for the day. They are handing this information over, and then the salespeople are downloading the information to that contact that's entering the data into the CRM. And that inside salesperson might have multiple salespeople, but then I have some level of accountability. If the data is inaccurate, then my inside salesperson is not doing a good job, and they need to be held accountable for translating that data accurately. They're also held accountable for making sure that the sales team is providing the updates, because salespeople suck at entering in information and forecasting. That is, very few salespeople have got that dialed in. But with a process of having, like what I've done in the past, I was able to actually put a metric, a KPI, on how accurate the salespeople were at forecasting their deals, when they were going to close, and the deal amounts. And you can't have that if you just let the salespeople enter in data and change it all the time. You need to have like more of a structure in how that data comes into the system, how it gets reported out. So, yeah. That's very interesting. Thank you so much, Tim, for that. So I'm actually going to come to you, Jeff. And Jeff, obviously, you are going to address now this point. This is going to be the talk of the conversation, I guess, that we need to address. How we believe and what we believe in, especially how salespeople should be using different systems. Do we want them to be completely isolated? Because in my mind, I think that's a huge problem. So, Jeff, in your experience, what is the stories and the technologies that you have seen from the architecture perspective inside the sales organization?
Sure. I mean, I've worked in very large organizations that had very elaborate sales tracking systems like Xerox, where I got some of my early sales training, to implementing, simple systems like you guys remember systems like ACT and Goldmine, which are basically contact managers and ticklers, to the CRM systems that we have today. In our company, we made CRM the center of our universe, and we realize there's no one size fits all. To the earlier comments, like Chuck was saying, that you just don't go with number one, but you have to choose a system. Don't want to sound like a motherhood, that actually fits and works for you to a certain extent. So, we use Soho One as our CRM. But we've tied into it all our support, our ERP system. We've actually quote out of CRM. We also have that output, all the data to our LinkedIn campaigns as well as to our contact managers. So when we have a salesperson, and we also have inside salespeople, look at an account or a deal, we're all more or less reading from the same hymn book. We also got to tie it into our email. So that anytime an email goes out to that particular contact or account, it gets fed automatically into Zoho. So there's one source of truth, so to speak, right? And then as well, we put in the ability to do proposals. And like Tim, I believe our salespeople should get involved and should get their hands dirty in the CRM for the simple reason that it's a tool that they should use to manage their time. And yes, I track on a weekly basis what their forecast is and how their closes. But needless to say, once you've done all the integration, once you've created the ability to generate quotes and you've got all these data points, the question is, how do you manage your team, right? And there's a critical function I did for one of our sales retreats, is that I compiled 4 years of sales data. I tried to correlate, what was the one metric that actually was the best predictor of sales. So I looked at proposals, I looked at opportunities, I looked at lead gens, looked at funnel, right? I looked at number of opportunities. Guess what was the lead metric for us that told me if we were going to have decent sales that quarter? It was the funnel. It was just the funnel, right? It was the size of our funnel. And whenever we had a bigger funnel, we had more closes. I mean, I thought it was how many demos we did. I thought it was how many proposals we did. So we focused on that. But then I said, it's just a funnel. So now our conversation is around what's in your funnel, what's in your funnel for the fiscal year, and where is the deal within the funnel itself. We have 7 stages before we get to a close. So part of it is managing the funnel to get the close. But more importantly, how can we get more leads into the funnel itself? How can we qualify? And part of the training we're doing today is actually with Sandler. They have this thing called the submarine, and they have this 7-step process where you identify the pain. And the biggest problem, the biggest mistake sales reps make is they go from pain, in our case, straight to demo, right? They go, oh, he's got all sorts of pain. We can fix that pain. Let's show him how wonderful our software is, because that's what the customer wants. And we'll get the deal. Guess what? We don't, right? And we realize that we're missing an important part, which was they call the budget. And in the budgeting process, you're not just covering the cost, you're covering how much time and change. As it turns out, we discovered change is the part of the equation that prospects rarely want to talk about, because change is maybe loss of status, change in a process, fear of the unknown. And we talked today, actually, every Thursday is our training with Sandler. And we talked today and we said, okay, here's the easy part about selling your system, which is talking about the benefits, the ROI, the pain that will help eliminate, and maybe the kudos that you'll get for putting in our system. What we don't do enough about is we don't talk about the hard stuff. We don't talk about the cost, the annual maintenance fees, the amount of time it's going to take to train people, the amount of pushback you get from people who don't want to change, right? The amount of facility prep, the labeling of all your products, the labeling of your racking, putting in wireless, buying equipment, getting more servers. Like, we're afraid to talk about it because we don't want to scare the customer. But in reality, what we learn, what really happens, those conversations do take place without you. So you better have them today and have those conversations so you don't go into a demo, which we take about 30 hours on our side to prepare for. So what we're trying to do is avoid that and have these conversations earlier. So we're learning how to manage the funnel better, but at the same time, we're being realistic about, what we can close based on the fact that we're having these harder conversations. So that's a lot, I know, but the bottom line is I do differ from Tim, and I believe that the sales reps should use CRM directly. And you're right, they're terrible at entry. And I look at some reps are better than others at doing the data entry. But in the end of the day, in our world, selling is a team sport. We've got multiple people involved. And if they're going to be looking in the CRM and they want to help you close that deal, then it's in the salesperson's best interest to put as much information there as possible. Of course, they'll have calls and whatnot, but it's a lot easier for the sales rep to say, hey, I need you in on this particular demo, or I need you to come in on this certain call because they're going to have all sorts of technical questions. The updates is in CRM, right? So that's how we work.
Okay, amazing. So I completely agree with you that, in my case, personally, I don't feel stressed when I lose an opportunity, but I do feel stressed when my pipeline is not growing. So you are right that the more pipeline you have, the higher chances you have to win. It doesn't matter. Obviously, the qualification matters a lot, but pipeline is definitely, I put my money on. Thank you so much, Jeff, for that. So Dave, I'm actually going to come to you. So I know we have spoken about different tools and their interaction as well. But one thing that we have not touched so far, which could be slightly different in different industries, and we definitely want to talk about how different industries are going to have different sales processes, and that is going to drive the need for tools. One of the biggest differentiator in my experience is always going to be B2B versus B2C. Okay, they both have very, very, very different. Okay, and when you are going to combine both of them together, which is very common with distributors, and nowadays it is becoming more common. Okay, and it's a nightmare. Okay, because you don't have a CRM system that can do both B2C and B2B, because the way they are designed, they were designed for either B2B or B2C, and people just think that, this CRM sucks because it doesn't fit my needs. It sucks because it's not designed for you. It was designed for either B2C or B2B, but when you combine them together, that's where the problem is going to be. And then we have things like the whole customer onboarding as part of your B2B process, especially when you work with these dealers. You have to literally run a kind of sales process there. You have to recruit them, you have to give them money, they are going to sell, you have to track. Oh my goodness, I mean, that you require a CRM there too. So you have dealer portal challenges, things of that nature. So we have not spoken about all of that. So what has been your experience, let's say, talking about the customer collaboration, this whole process for dealers, then B2B versus B2C?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. To your point, right? It's ultra complex. That's the simplest way to say it. It's really complex the more layers you start to put in there.
Yep.
And, what I have seen from a systems standpoint is a lot of pieces ultimately bolted together, a lot of additional programming that has gone in from a customization standpoint, kind of back to Tim's comment about, building out some of his Salesforce implementations and, having that, hey, we're different than everybody. And in those cases, obviously you want to talk about what your real process is and what's the need for continuing on with this process and digging to get to the root of, are we really different, or are we just trying to recreate something that, maybe we shouldn't have been doing in the first place? I say that kind of compared to the examples that you gave, because when you have all of those complexities from a distribution channel or dealer network, as well as, B2C direct through e-commerce, in my opinion, the easiest way to start is to make sure that you've got a very accurate map of all of that. So you're mapping out what your customer journey is. And in your example, you're mapping out both a B2C and a B2B customer journey. And then you are also mapping out your sales process portion for each one of those. And then you are starting to think about, okay, what technology do we have and are we utilizing, if you're already in that boat, or if you're in the boat of saying, what we have today is this bolt-on kind of tangled web of systems and or manual processes and or, things like Excel. Even I've seen, Access. I've seen some really wild stuff over the course of time to make all of this stuff work. But, for me, it's really then looking at that technology piece and saying, okay, we now understand exactly what that customer journey map looks like. We now understand exactly what we want our sales process to be. And then taking a look at those technology requirements, basically creating the technology requirements from both sets of those maps, and then creating this third map that really becomes the system, the overall system architecture. And again, we already talked about the different components of that, But that's when, in my opinion, back to what, Chuck, you were saying about, and Jeff, same as you, in terms of picking one solution over the other, there's always going to be a give and take. There's always going to be some functionality that you get with one system over another, unless you build something completely from scratch or you take something existing and start to customize it. But again, even with both of those solutions, if you will, you're introducing, more times than not, a lot of cost, and more times than not, a lot of additional implementation integration that you're not even thinking about yet. Things like, how am I going to get my data from system A to system B? What's going to be the impact to my business while I'm trying to figure out what does this master plan even look like, and how can we build it, and so on and so forth. So that's been a little bit of my experience. Most of it has been a pretty tangled web of systems and manual processes strung together, which again is just going to make things really, really challenging from a process standpoint, because, as we all know, process is all about repeatability and accountability. And if you are stringing things together in a very manual way, that's not very cohesive and doesn't have a lot of data handshakes between them, it's going to be extremely challenging to be able to be successful, executing those processes.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Dave, for that. So I am going to have some follow-up comments, and I'm actually going to come to Chris. And Chris, in this specific case, Dave actually mentioned that you are probably going to have tangled web. But when we look at the complexity of, let's say, B2C and B2B processes, especially the kind of things are happening in the market, you have so many different marketplaces, you have so many different customer structure, they have their own sort of sales processes, and that actually drives a lot of different complexity in the sales process. Now, if you try to accommodate all of that as part of CRM, that's going to be like $10 million implementation, I guess. So sometimes, we really need to keep outside of the system because it's going to be too expensive. So in your experience, when you look at the customer collaboration, I don't know if you have seen any specific problems in specific industries in terms of the customer collaboration, B2C versus B2B, and incorporating all of the sales process inside your sales systems.
Sure. So I do have a specific example. I've got a group I'm working with. It's an apparel-based company. And so they have a B2B and a B2C. And it's interesting in the architecture, you talk about complexity, is they have two websites, right? B2C, B2B. And guess what? On the B2B, then again, there's a marketing automation behind the B2C.
Yeah.
And they're using a CRM to manage the B2B. And then again, they've got a dedupe process because of all the complexities between two different systems, and then they bring it together, and then eventually it's going to hit the ERP. But the complexities there, even in the B2C, is they don't want the million customers that are shopping online in their ERP. So there's even a filtering and summarization as it hits the back office system. So really managing the customers in B2C doesn't happen in the back office. And even to have a million people in a CRM, it's not there. It's more of a marketing automation. So you're going to see some different architecture when you're managing B2B and B2C. And typically they're going to be different systems because they are different sales processes. But as I said, the B2C piece is really being managed by a marketing automation, trying to get people to come back and buy through the website because they're not doing a direct sell to them. Whereas again, the B2B, it's more of a relationship where they're trying to get these wholesalers to buy and distribute their products almost tier two manner. So it does add complexity, no question about it.
Okay, so very interesting commentary there. So I'm actually going to come to you, Chuck. And as we all know, Chris is extremely influential, right? He can somehow sell very simple architecture, but I am going to make his architectural complex. Okay, so in his example, he said that, he has B2C and B2B. Now, B2C is backed by your marketing automation. B2B is backed by your CRM. So now in my case, my customer actually wants to have marketing automation for both because they want to do the same interaction that they are doing in case of B2C for B2B as well, because you need to be in touch with your dealers. You need to have the cross sell, upsell, whatever you can do from the marketing automation. You want to have all of those triggers, the data points and everything. Now, he said that, I am going to make it really easy. Retail customers not coming to ERP. Okay, but I'll make the product slightly complex as well. So now in this particular case, the product requires service, meaning this is not a pure play retail product. The pure play, in his case, somebody is buying, a dress, nobody's going to come back and they're not going to ask for any sort of repair on that. Now, I am talking about either some sort of electronic product that requires repair, and you have a million customers in case of retail. So would those customers go to ERP? Would they reside in retail? So now in this architecture, how would you design this process combining
B2C, B2B, two different CRM, two different marketing automation, and then you have the retail complexity.
So I think it's actually relatively simple. So
Okay.
one of the things as I'm listening to all of our partners here in this discussion is, B2C and B2B. B2C, as Chris pointed out, is very marketing heavy, okay, as a process. And the front end of the pipeline is extremely short. Consumers come in, they buy or they don't buy, okay? The goal is, how can I continue to get them to be loyal, okay?
Yeah.
Because your best customers are the ones that you already have. B2B, on the other hand, typically, okay, and it depends, and there's multiple aspects of B2B. Is it a solution sale or is it more of a commoditized sale? Two very, very different aspects and requiring a different sales process. But the B2B tends to be front end heavy, okay? So now you start talking about, so in that process or that product where you have a repair type of thing, clearly they have to go into the ERP, okay, or they have to go into the operational structure because that needs to be processed. But I think Chris is right. You don't have to put all of that in there. It's about triggering, okay, now I have this repair function by way of example that you proffered. Okay, now that triggers that they go into the ERP because clearly they have a reason to. Now, if you have too many people going into the ERP, that's a KPI of a different sort. You have too darn many repairs, don't you? Okay, so let's not even go there. Okay, it should be a small subset if you're doing your job well as a company. And so it can work together as an architecture, but clearly one marketing automation system can work. B2B, B2C, they're just different segmented lists. The process behind marketing automation for your company is basically going to be the same regardless, but in terms of how it functions. But what you execute may be very, very different. Those are segmented lists and different customized execution. One marketing hub. CRM is the exact same thing, okay? I may have very, very little data for a customer that's B2C or someone that has a very fast journey through the pipeline, okay? But I have lots and lots and lots of records. B2B, particularly solution selling, I'm going to have very few records and lots of activity for their long journey through the pipeline. It's still the same tool. It's still the same architecture, but it comes down to what's the process. So Jeff was talking about the Sandler system. I happen to like the Miller-Hyman system. The system you like is the system that you like. Over to what Tim has to say, okay, I don't love integrations and spending a lot of money on customizations. The one that I can get behind is if you can find a way to customize for the sales process, like a Sandler system or a Miller-Hyman system, and bring that into the CRM. However, the caveat is only if it's very well institutionalized and managed very well by both sales operations and sales management. Otherwise, don't waste your money. But I think architecturally, it's still one tool that you just use differently for different segments of your lists.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Chuck, for that. So, Tim, I'm actually going to come to you. And now the story is going to have flavors of salespeople not entering the data, obviously, because that's the spiciest story of the day. So here, now the sales process is very complex in this architecture, as you can imagine, because now your products need to go to your ERP because they require the touch from your customer service. Now you have your retail customer right there. So if you are going to, mess up anything in your sales process, that's actually going to come back to you in your finance processes, right? So in this architecture, let's say if you are working with B2C, B2B, and you have nuances of customer collaboration, the dealer collaboration, you need to check the deal at every stage, and it's not going to be just one simple deal. You are actually managing very complex accounts. So how would you approach this, Tim, in your experience?
So to process them differently, is that the question, Sam? Like I guess I want to make sure I clearly answer.
Yeah. So basically, from the process perspective, let's say if we have all of these flavors of B2B, B2C. In your case, I don't know how much complexity you have in your sales processes at this point of time. But when we work with these businesses, they are going to have many different flavors of how they are processing their orders, how they are doing their sales transactions. They are going to have very different products. I mean, they behave very different.
Yep. Okay. So when I look at these, when you have basically multi-channel distribution, in our case, we work with material handling dealers, systems integrators, and then direct. So we have kind of like that B2C and then the B2B side of things. And really what we do is you have to take a step back and distill what's similar and what's different, and then do, the things that are different. So if you have, if your website, if you're doing a true B2C, going to like a more of a retail or, electronics type of business, then, have the website do the work, but then it drops it into your ERP as a sales order. There are different ways of handling that. That way or drop it into your CRM as a sales order or whatever it might be. But you need to look at that and then just see where is it the same and make sure you have this backbone as a process, because you shouldn't have just complete parallel. It really should kind of, merge at some point in time, because a good CRM will be able to keep track of, serial numbers, what was sold and how, all that kind of fun stuff. So when it comes to like when you have these lots of different flavors, in your business, if you're selling safety glasses, you're selling this, you're selling that, it really boils down to making sure you understand what that sales process looks like and that the system really is intuitive and follows a very simple flow. That to me is at its core what a good CRM or good a grouping or packaging of software will do. So if you need the marketing automation, identify and just call it what it is. Yes, we need to market to our dealers differently than we market to our end users. And that goes into like even farther forward upstream of the CRM. Now you're talking in your marketing groups. You're talking different stories. You're portraying different value propositions to each of them. So yeah, there's a lot in that question there, Sam.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Tim, for that. So, Jeff, I'm actually going to come to you, and the question is going to be around the architecture and the story that we are talking about, which is going to be B2B, B2C, customer collaboration, managing the whole dealer recruitment process. What has been your experience?
Well, we're going to be embarking on a little experiment, and probably I'll come back on the show next time you have a sales update. We're going to be treating our new customers through CRM, relationship, lots of relationship building, lots of videos, all that stuff to establish our credibility. But for existing customers who know us, I mean, there's always the need for them to get more stuff from us, buy some additional license or subscriptions, buy service, buy additional products, right? But that's going to be more transactional, right? So the question is, people always want to buy. They don't like to be sold to, right? And our existing customers don't want to go through a long process to get a quote or to even buy licenses. So to that end, we're going to start doing B2C type services and offerings to them, right? So we're going to create their own, through our portal, they're going to have their own little website where they can order and buy more services directly online. But the key thing there is to keep it updating their CRM. So our sales rep is aware of that, right? So we're also going to be creating an Instagram account. I think we already have it up. And we're going to start doing Instagram type stuff to our customer base, right? Why not, right? Whereas LinkedIn is more designed for newer customers, prospects, we're going to be taking some of that social media stuff, that B2C stuff, a page out of their books, and do Facebook type stuff, do Instagram, maybe even TikTok. We'll see where this goes, right? You may see me riding a scooter and drinking some Sprite, or whatever, right? So at the end of the day, we're going to be taking boring and patient B2C, because I think at the end of the day, it's all going to start blurring how we market and how we sell to either new customers or existing customers. But we do know that existing customers want the friction out of buying, because they don't need the song and dance. They know what they want. They want some information. They want to access it quickly. So we're building systems to support that.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Jeff, for that. So the only thing we can take right now is going to be closing advice. We have roughly 5 minutes and we have 5 people. So you can go a little long on your closing advice. So Dave, I am actually going to start with you. What would be your closing advice to people who are trying to design their sales systems and processes?
Thanks, Sam. And I'll go quick, but for me, it's all about understanding your customer journey, the customer process, what those customers and for each segment, right back to what we were saying, whether it's B2B, B2C, and subsets within each one of those, understanding what that journey looks like for your customer, understanding what your ideal sales process is for each one of those groups of customers, and then taking a look at either existing technology and or new technology that addresses that process, the process and the customer mapping, to make sure that you're able to actually execute against the processes that you'd like to from a sales perspective.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Dave, for that. Chris, I'm actually going to come to you. If you want to address any of the comments that has been mentioned, you can do that along with closing advice.
No, I'll just get some closing advice. But I think as we look at CRM systems and sales automation, even if you have a system in place, you're trying to solve a problem in the business. And I think you need to really figure out is what problem are we trying to solve. And in sales automation, it could just be visibility of a forecast. It could be accountability to a sales rep. It could be improving close ratios. It could just be that forecast, and it could be accuracy. But really, there's a land and expand mentality. But, to focus on those business processes and nail them and really fix them and then continue to expand that mission, that's the advice I would give.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Chris, for that. So, Chuck, if you want to address any of the comments that has been mentioned, you can do that, and along with closing advice.
I'd like to build on Dave's comment about customer journey. I'd like to. It's a very similar thought. I'd like to say that the folks need to understand their own selling journey. They need to understand the word. We sell because we build relationships. That phrase is completely overused. We sell because we bring value in a way that's perceived to be better than our competition. That's really what it is. And how do you get there? Building on Tim's comment, salespeople suck at entering data. Well, sales managers suck at making sure they enter the data. Not only that, typically sales organizations suffer from hiring the best salesmen and promoting them. Okay, up to sales manager. And that person can sell the heck out of the product and service, but they have no idea how to coach and develop their team because they don't know how to teach other people what they do. And that's what I mean by the selling journey. And that's where the CRM, creating effective KPIs on your dashboards and monitoring that, and then seeing that activity that they have to make their salespeople enter, and to be able to use it not to punish them, but to coach them and to help them become the salespeople that they need to be. So I would say, as bad as your salespeople suck, your sales managers probably suck worse when it comes to your CRM. And that's probably the root of CRM failure.
Okay, love it. Thank you so much, Chuck, for that. So, Tim, if you want to address any of the comments or closing advice.
No, Chuck was very accurate. He's spot on with his assessment there. I've seen it so many times. Sales managers sales guys, they do great. They hit big numbers. And next thing you know, now they're the sales manager, and then they become sales managers. Okay, we need sales leaders. A leader will look at that KPI and that dashboard, and he'll say, okay, because this, we need to change this. And because this guy over here or gal over here is doing this, their KPI is higher, maybe you should do this. Let's learn from each other and empower each other. I think at the end of the day, when you're looking at implementing a new CRM or any kind of new sales process, you really need to map out the process by distilling what you're hearing from the sales team. The sales team, all these guys are selling in different ways, they're doing different things, but at the core of it, if you distill it, there is a process that's going to be exposed, and the CRM and the software really needs to be intuitive and support that process. And then incentivize the behavior that you want. Put the KPI up there that you want to drive. If you don't put the KPI up there, the funnel, if that's not on everybody's list to see what their pipeline looks like, what that number is, nobody's going to care. They're going to focus on what's in front of them and what's on their dashboard.
Okay, love it. Thank you so much, Tim, for that. Jeff, I'm actually going to come to you. Any comments you want to address and closing advice?
Yeah, I think the comments from all the panelists today were spot on. I love the comments, and always great to have a little controversy as well, and it actually opens up your mind to thinking maybe I shouldn't get my sales rep to do the entry, right? But nonetheless, for me, it always comes down to the one thing. What is the one thing that's going to drive your sales, right? And for us, it was the funnel, and it's a question then of making sure that your CRM reports faithfully on that. But also that Tim's comment, inspect what you expect, right? That means, I have weekly one-on-one meetings with each of my reps around funnel, how they're doing, what they're doing to build the funnel, and how we can get more lead into their funnel, and what can I do to help level the playing field on their behalf. So great topic once again. Sam, was a lot of fun today.
All right, amazing, guys. So that's it for today. On that note, I want to thank everybody for your time and insights today.
Everybody.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Chris Garadini, head over to turnkeytech.com. It's turnkeytec.com. If you want to learn more about Tim Harrison, head over to mcj.team. It's mcj.team. If you want to learn more about Jeff Lam, head over to portable-intelligence.com. It's portable-intelligence.com. If you want to learn more about Dave Chrysler, head over to thechrysler.club. It's THECRYSLER.CLUB. If you want to learn more about Chuck Coxhead, head over to procensis.com. It's PROCENSIS.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, you might want to check other related episodes, including the interview with Shemas Ruiz Earl, who discusses the core reasons for the low adoption of CRM systems among sales teams. Also, the interview with Jill Walker, who discusses why CRM is important and how that fits among other systems such as ERP and e-commerce. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.